everyone, what's up? This is Tamara from shelfaddiction.com and welcome to episode 28. And we're talking all about what makes a good audiobook. We'll talk about the good and the bad of audiobook narration from the listener's point of view. We'll be talking all about what we like and what we don't like, what makes it pleasant and what makes it horrible. So if you want to get in on this conversation or give some feedback on this topic, let me know what you think and tweet at me on Twitter at shelfaddiction. Joining me is fellow book and audiobook lover, Classy Green. She also is the Illinois chapter organizer for the Mocha Girls Read Book Club. Hey, Classy, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Tamara. How are you?
I'm fabulous. It's a good morning.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, it's nice and sunny. It's not too hot yet, and it's good.
Right. It's crisp morning here in Illinois. I love this weather. Went and took my dog for a walk, and it was beautiful. So I started my day off great.
Yay, got out and got a walk in. That's good. That's the only reason sometimes I think maybe I should get a dog is so I actually get out and walk more.
Yes. Yes, because they will remind you.
Yeah, and if you don't, you'll pay for it, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's not good. Oh, well, see, that's probably why I don't have a dog yet. So I'm saying.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about audiobooks today, and I know you enjoy a good audiobook as much as I do. So let's start off with talking about some things that make an audiobook good, why we like them, maybe not only why we enjoy audiobooks, but what makes a good narrator as well. So we can just toss it all in. Okay, so you start.
Okay. Good, I would say voice variation.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know that when they had more than one character in the book, I need to know when that other character is coming in or leaving. Those are good audiobooks for me. Someone who can change up their voice, authentic accents, consistency. If you're going to have a Nigerian accent or any other kind of accent, it needs to be consistent throughout the book.
Yeah.
I've listened, to a few books where you can tell where, the accent is changing. It doesn't sound authentic. Those are some of my pointers about a good book. Good audiobook. And inflection, cadence.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to have a nice pace to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to draw me in. It's a good quality for the book. It makes the book interesting. I'm like, if it's mystery and you have me on the edge of my seat, or you're a cliffhanger, I need to feel that. So those are some things I love about audiobooks and a good narrator.
That you mentioned that, I really love when I'm able to feel like I'm visualizing the books, and a good narrator can make me feel like I'm watching a movie instead of just listening to words. Right. And that's the best, because you don't want to, if you're in your car, you want to stay in your car the extra 2 minutes to finish, the chapter, or, that when you feel drawn in, that's just the best thing ever.
Yes.
And, I also agree with you as far as like tone and inflection and different voices, being able to stretch your voice. I mean, narrators are essentially actors and actresses, in my opinion. So voice actors, basically, they need to be able to, if it's a male narrator, he needs to be able to read for a feminine voice and not sound awkward or falsetto.
Right. Or squeaky. I've heard that before. It's too high pitch and it's like it's not natural.
Right. And same for the female. Like there's a female narrator. She needs to be able to make her voice more masculine without it being awkward. And it just needs to be natural. And I especially like when they're able to pull off men and women and children sometimes. Yes. And maybe an accent or two. I mean, that's a real talented narrator who can just throw all that in the mix and you never get confused. You never question who's talking.
Yes. And that's right. If I can't figure out, wait a minute, is this Susie or is this John? Yeah, that's not good. Those are very key issues. But you know what? I have a question for you. So have you found that male narrators do better with female voices, or all around voices, or female narrators do better?
I feel like female narrators do better.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that too. They do a much better job with male, female, kids. Some of the male narrators have a hard time to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very few that do a
Mm-hmm.
great job. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the guy who reads for J.R. Ward's books. He's been doing the Angel Share in the Bourbon Kings. I think his name is, I cannot remember his name. But, her books are like third person essentially. And of course, you're, quoting people. There's no real protagonist. Like, everyone's kind of almost equal.
okay,
So,
yes,
he actually, I can hear his voice in my head right now. He actually does okay when he speaks for the women. And he has like this southern twang sometimes. It's like, wow, he does a good job. But he's a
okay.
good one. And he's got that down. He's one of the guys that can pull it off.
Yeah, and I think R.C. Bray does an excellent job. He does all the voices, and I can tell when the female is, what the female character is coming in, the male character, all of them. So I don't have to go back and say, now who's talking now? Who's speaking? That's important.
Mm-hmm. You know what else I love is when the producers or the casting people, whoever chooses the narrator, the author, I like when they pick someone that is appropriate voice-wise for the age of the characters.
Yes.
Sometimes I think that also lends to the ability and the skill of the narrator when they can't bend their voice to that way. But,
Right.
Sometimes you get a book where you're reading about like a 21-year-old and it sounds like you're listening to a 60-year-old. That's just not good.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And I've heard some older narrators doing that, and older people, when the older you get, your voice changes and it becomes a little crackle. I don't know. I had a girlfriend who said she listened to an audiobook and she could hear the narrators. Oh gosh, I hate to say that, her dentures and that clicking. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I went back and listened, and you can hear that little click from the dentures. And she said it just totally threw her off. The character is 20 something, like 27, and you can obviously tell this is an over 60-year-old woman. She was an author who was narrating her book. So
that's
good.
not good. She should have spent was she an indie author? Do you know?
No, she was Toni Morrison.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
somebody stop her. Somebody.
It was Toni Morrison. I'm sorry. I love her. And that's the thing. It's like some of those authors that we love, and they're famous and they're beloved. It's just like, I hate to say it, but you should have just spent the extra money and got a narrator, because I can hear the characters weren't believable. So that's one of those things where I think maybe if I'd have read the book, I could have used my own imagination and see who, I think her name was Bride, was the character. But with Toni doing it, 27-year-old Bride seemed like a 60-year-old woman in my eyes. So,
and that's a shame, because you never know before you get into it which way it's going to go. And a narrator can like raise that book up a couple notches, or it can just ruin it. It could ruin it. And that's on top of if the writing is good or bad. So it's that to consider as well.
Yes.
But oh goodness, I hate when that happens, especially if you've already listened to it for, I don't know, an hour or so, then you've got that voice in your head, and it's like, will it ever, I don't know. It's like once I've started, it's almost ruined it right off the bat.
Right. And that's the thing, like I'll listen and my review is horrible, and then I'll go back and look on Goodreads or other sites, and they love the book, and I'm like, what did they see that I did not see? And maybe it is the audio. Maybe it's because the narrator did a poor job and they saw it from a different point of view by reading it, and they used their own voice. So that could be the bad maybe of audio.
Yeah, but on that flip side, like there was a book where, what book was it? Like one of my recent book club books, it was like dreadful. I hated it. I'm like, it's so bad. I couldn't get through it. And then someone said, you should have listened to it on audio. It was good on audiobook. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah. That's how the Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, because he did a lot of Spanish in there, and he didn't add any footnotes of what the Spanish words said, but listening to it just with you could kind of figure out what the Spanish words meant
Mm-hmm.
just by, the before and after. I can't remember the term for that. But it was easy. But for people to read it, it was very hard because they had to go and look up what the Spanish word means and go back. And so, yeah, I love the book because I did audio. The people in my group were frustrated. They were like, there are too many Spanish words and he should have added footnotes. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yes.
Unfortunate for them, lucky for you.
Yes. I thought it was a great book.
And maybe that's a good idea for like people in book clubs or even just in general. If there's a book that you really want to finish, but it's not grabbing you on paper, switch to the audio and see if it does any better.
Right.
Don't give up on it yet. Give it a try on audio.
Yes.
And another good thing about that is if you're not sure about it, you don't have to spend money on it. 9 times out of 10, your library will have it on download.
Right. Yes.
So,
And Overdrive is awesome.
I
don't know,
it.
do you have Overdrive with your librry?
I do. I love it.
Okay. Yes.
Although I have to say the app could stand to be a little better.
Yes.
I
agree.
I don't think they've updated it in a long time. It's like they need some programmers or user interface experience people or something. The app could be a little better, but it gets you what you need,
Right.
So it works.
For free?
Yeah.
For free? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah. So then what else? Also, let's talk about a few of the reasons why audiobooks are good options to try. Not only, if you're having a hard time with a book, but, everyone says they don't have time to read a book. And I think that is like the biggest cop out. I'm sorry. Everyone has time.
Right. You could do, and that's what my goal was this year is I do a lot of audio, but I was also trying to do some print or ebook or, something in my hand. So I started donating at least 1 hour to 2 hours a day, an hour on my lunch break, an hour when I get home. But audiobooks, the convenience of it is so awesome. You can, like when I walk the dog, I just did like 2 chapters walking the dog, or when I'm working out, you can finish a book. The other thing is those long books, like one of our book club books was James Baldwin, Just Above My Head. It was over 500 pages.
Oof.
Yes. And and it's an older book and it was tiny print. And I'm like, oh no. I can't do that. Now that I didn't have the time for in a month. So I did audio, and every waking minute when I got up in the morning, I was listening to it and getting ready. So you can knock out on a large amount of time on a book with audio. So
yes, you can,
like
especially if you have, like, I don't think Overdrive does this. Well, it might. I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but I know Audible does this. I usually listen at 1.5 or 2. It depends on how slow the dialogue is. I can go up to 2, and you will knock it out even faster.
Yes, right. And I found that out a couple months ago that I could do that. I didn't realize that, and it does help when you can get through a book quicker, especially long books. Oh gosh. And sometimes just the voice. Yeah, just above my head, the guy's voice was just kind of, I don't know, he was fast paced for me, but those are great options to speed it up.
Yes, because it's really noticeable. Sometimes the narrator just has a slow cadence naturally, so it's kind of like, oh, come on, okay, I'm gonna speed this up. And other times they are kind of fast talking anyway, so you might not need it.
Yes.
So it's case by case.
I needed that with my last book.
Which
and
was
it was
that?
on Overdrive. My last book was All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda, or was it Megan Miranda? And her cadence, she was flat the whole time. she didn't pick up until probably like 78. The narrator, which was Rebecca Ross, she didn't pick up until like 78% of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, really? Did somebody just tell you,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's go?
Yeah.
And I really wished I had that option to speed up. And it may be on overdrive. I'm going to check it out when we finish.
Well, I know for sure Scribd doesn't have that feature. Like, I have a monthly Scribd subscription, so you get so many books and like an audiobook every month. Okay. And that is what kind of makes me sad about their app, is they don't have that function. I'm like, why wouldn't you have it?
Right.
So
that is key. So I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You know how earlier we were talking about a bad example of someone reading their own book, Toni Morrison? Well, yes. I actually am listening to one now that is a good example of someone reading their own book. And this is fiction. I have a nonfiction title that I liked, but this is Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette Kowal. Now, when I looked her up, at first I'm like, oh, she sounds really good. And I didn't realize it was her reading her own book at first until I looked it up. And I'm like, wait, she's narrating it too. And then that made me look her up on Audible. And come to find out, she is a narrator. So she's narrated other books. So then she wrote a book. So I think that is a unique situation. So she's not just an author reading her own book. She's a narrator who is also an author who narrates her own book.
That's a double whammy.
Yeah.
But an awesome whammy.
Yeah, she's doing a good job with it.
Oh, okay.
So
got that. Wrote that down.
Yeah, it's definitely historical fiction. So it's definitely a little, but it has fantasy. It's about like psychics and mediums during World War I, I think. So yeah, it's different.
Right, because some authors, I believe, they read their book and not narrate their book or tell the story. They just read the book. And some examples of that would be, some poor examples, I would say, would be Terry McMillan. I just did her Almost Forgot About You. And it's supposed to be a love story of her missing out on her past loves. And the whole time I felt she was mad. I felt mad, and that's something else too with books. I felt mad with her, and I'm like, you're looking at past loves. I know there's some bad, but there's some good, and I didn't feel any kind of feelings with her. I felt, mad at the men. I felt no emotion at all, and that's something with Audible books. I need to feel some kind of emotion. If she's sad, I'm sad. If she's happy, I can feel that kind of joy. Or when I'm done, I feel inspired. And she was just gruff the whole time. And so on the flip side,
that was her personality. I'm just saying.
It was. And after meeting her at BEA and then listening to this book, I think I might be better off reading her book instead of doing audio, because I can put my own imagination and my own voice and see it from a different point of view. And again, book club, because that was our book last month, book club readers loved it. It wasn't my favorite. But on the flip side of author doing a great job narrating their own book, I would say, is Year of Yes.
Yes, that's the one I was going to say. Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
I've listened to that book twice, and I'll probably do it again, because when I'm done with her book, I feel everything. She's so, she's comical. She's, everything. When she was sad and low, when she talked about her lowest parts, you felt it. Yeah. When she was high, you felt it. I felt, she did a phenomenal job. But my book club who read it did not like it. They felt like she was self-centered and she was this, and that. And I'm like, you didn't get her emotions. You should have listened. That was a great audio.
Yeah. And, actually when listening to like a memoir type situation, I think almost if the author can narrate well, it's worth it, because
Yes.
then you know when they're being funny, when they're being cheeky, when they're being, versus reading it with your own inflection, you know
Right.
what they intended.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Memoirs. Yeah, that's right. That's a good example. Memoirs probably are great for the author to narrate because they are going on their own emotion. It's their life. They're
Right.
speaking in first person. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know
So,
who else had a really good one? And I never really necessarily liked this, performer. She's a performer before I read her book. Like, I thought, meh, she's all right. But after listening to her on audiobook, I'm like, oh yeah, I love that woman. And that is Tina Fey. Her bossy
oh God.
pants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Because when you were talking, I'm like, is she going to say Tina Fey? Is she going to
Yeah.
say Tina Fey? Oh, she was hilarious.
Yes.
Yes.
She's
And
funny. I'm like, wow.
yeah, and it just gives you a whole new light on the person. Like you said, to see her on Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock, you're like, she's okay. But to read her, to listen to her, phenomenal.
Yes.
Love her book. And see, that's another book I could listen to again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love Tina Fey's Bossy Pants.
Yeah, so authors, if you're writing a memoir and you're good at narrating,
Yes.
do it. We want to hear about you and make us feel
Yes.
like we get to know you during the process. So
Right.
it's a good thing.
Yes. Good.
So what are some other audiobooks or audiobook narrators that you really like?
I like R.C. Bray. He is a male author who he usually does like 3 and 4 characters in a book. My
Mhm.
favorite probably is Anybody's Daughter by Pamela Samuels Young. He's done all of her books, and I love him. And like you said, when you find a narrator that you really like, then you look him up or look her up, and you're like, okay, what else have they read because they do such a great job.
Yes.
My other one was Shonda Rhimes, but we mentioned Shonda.
Yeah.
Jen Hammond is another good one. She narrated The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. And that's a story of a young Afghan girl
Okay.
who goes through the tradition, I think it's called Bacha Pash, where she's a young girl who dresses like a boy. That's a tradition in the Afghan culture. She can dress as a boy into a marriageable age because her father only had girls, and
Mhm.
boys, daughters couldn't get escorted out. They had to be escorted by a man.
Mm-hmm.
But Jen Hammond is a white woman, but she's a vocal coach.
Mm-hmm.
And she does an excellent job for an Afghan accent. I thought she was Afghan. She did
Wow.
such a phenomenal job. And the other one is Cassandra Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
Love her. One of my favorite books she's did was Everything I Never Told You
Mm-hmm.
by Celeste Ng, Ng.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah.
Yeah, that Cassandra Campbell did an awesome job. That book is a great book, and she's done. I think Cassandra did The Pocket Wife, The Help. She was one of the authors, narrators in The Help, and The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks.
Yes, I love that. That was another one. Like, it wasn't. It was definitely nonfiction, but it was what biography style.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that would have been a very difficult book to read, but
Yes.
it was a gem on audiobook. I learned so much. I'm like,
Right.
wow,
Yeah, right. The medical terms and the emotions of the family and her coming with the family. They did an excellent job, and I think Bahani Turpin was the daughter of Henrietta, and
Mhm.
I like Bahani too. So those are some of my favorite narrators.
Yeah. Well, I have a little list. I don't know. And I think I love these all equally for different reasons. Maybe not for, they don't do, I guess, as many serious like books, but they're all genre fiction books that I've read or listened to rather, and I just love them. Like Tavia Gilbert. I don't know if you've heard of Tavia Gilbert, but she's narrated a ton of books. But she's like very multifaceted, and I mean, she can like really, she has some range with her voice, I tell you. And she's done accents, and she's done children and adults and men and women.
Okay.
Oh, I love it. I cannot get enough. And then also, I really enjoyed Jennifer Ikeda, and she did the Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Another one where I'm not sure I would have read those books in all honesty, but listening to them was a good find. It's also, I have to bring up a guy. I want to throw a guy in the mix. So Tim Gerard Reynolds. He did a stellar job with the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. I mean, he's got Australian accents, and, they have different types of lingo when the different groups of people are talking. So you hear some really highbrow speaking, and then you hear some really, low end, we work underneath the ground, we're not very educated, somewhat kind of speak. So he's got the range. He really does. And he does a great job with it. So those are some that kind of pop out to me, from things that I've listened to, I guess, more recently. But yeah, there's so many. I just can't pick a favorite. I just can't. Like having to pick your favorite child.
And see, like that Red Rising, to sit there and read that, like you said, you probably wouldn't have got as much from the book, because it's almost like it's a movie type book. It's so animated that you need those different voices, kind of like Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter, and some of those, to have it audio is phenomenal, because it's like you're at the movie, and then when you go see it at the movie, you're kind of like, hey, I see it.
Speaking of movies, that would make an amazing movie. That would make it amazing. And if they did it right, it would be phenomenal. It would be like the next big thing that everyone was obsessed with.
Right.
Totally.
I mean, when you were talking about the voices, I could see that. It's sometimes books just don't do it does it justice, but to have that audio makes it so great. And like, I think too, with audio, not everybody learns the same or can process information the same. So to have an audio book to bring that story to light, even, it helps you. Yes,
absolutely. Let's see. I did have two more suggestions. I don't have the narrators written down, but The Passage by Justin Cronin, those 3 books, the narrator does a stellar job there. And that's kind of like a post-apocalyptic vampire book, not a pretty vampire book, not a romance. This is like people had a virus. The government messed with them and tried to do tests on them and created monsters. And so now everyone is sorry.
Oh, gosh.
Oh my God. And then the other one is Illuminae. And that's with, oh my goodness, the names are escaping me right now. I don't know why.
I think one was Lincoln Hope.
Olivia
Taylor?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's really, really good. That's, a science fiction young adult, but it really feels like an older book. And the story is told through a series of dossiers about, an attack on a world, and then these 2 ships surviving by the skin of their teeth because the AI went nuts. The artificial intelligence kind of just took over. It was crazy. But it's very good. And I didn't know how that would come across on audiobook, because I haven't seen the book in person, but people have told me it's like literally like you'd be reading a ship log, and then you'd be reading a voicemail. So it is a stack of dossiers. It's a huge book, but the way it comes off on audio is like something I never expected. And then you can hear like sometimes noises in the background from the ship, and then the AI sounds like an actual AI, and then it's like they have it's just like a full immersive experience. It's just like nothing I've ever experienced, really.
So you're like in you're in a theater visually.
Yes.
Like IMAX.
Yes.
So while you're walking or whatever you're doing, you're sitting there.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's the second book, Gemini, I think comes out next month, I think. So
okay, see, I have seen that. I have seen the Gemini book
Yeah.
is a new book coming out. Okay.
Yeah, when we were at BEA, people were running trying to get Gemini, and at
Okay.
that time, I didn't know what the hype was. I'm like, what
Right.
is this book that everyone is talking about? And
That's
so,
probably where I saw it.
yeah, that's my recommendations.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so before we jump into the things that we don't like necessarily and some bad choices of audiobooks, let me do a blog rundown.
It's time for the blog rundown. Find out what's new on shelfaddiction.com.
Hey guys, it's that time again. So I think you already know what I'm going to ask of you. I'm going to ask that you go to shelfaddiction.com and send me a speak pipe voicemail for the genre of the month. I am putting together a really fun podcast with all about horror and Halloween as we are leading into October. So for the month of September, you can leave me your recommendations for the horror genre or Halloween themed book. Give me a 60-second or less message. Include your name, your state or country. Include the author, the title, and a one-liner telling me why you recommend that book. Or if you just have some general feedback for me, you can leave that there as well. So please just go to the website. It's on the front page on the right-hand side. It says leave a voicemail or send a voicemail. It's really easy to find. So thanks. I really appreciate that. All right, guys, so we're going to continue on. And I know we talked a little bit about things that we didn't like about audiobooks, but I think we're going to continue on with our complaints, things that we did not like, and things that don't make it that enjoyable.
I would say when the narrator does not have any passion for the story. When you're reading, you have to immerse yourself into the book and become the characters, and good or bad. Mm-hmm. If you're narrating, you're selling this book for the author, and I need you to have passion. And instead of telling it, you need to narrate it. I want to be transported. I think you even said that before. I need to be transported into this story. If I'm walking in the park, if you're walking in the park, I'm walking in the park with you.
Right.
If we're driving in the car and you're speeding and you're about to hit, I need to be there, not walking through the park. No.
Yeah.
I need to be right there in the story. You should not sound like you're bored.
Yeah.
You know, I just think like, when I used to read my kids' bedtime stories, I just didn't say, the little brown bear went to, I had to use different voices. I had to make myself the bear and the mom, and they were excited. They wanted to hear more. And that's what I need from a story. I'm a narrator. And if you don't have that, I'm bored. If you put me to sleep, it's bad.
That's bad.
And I've had some books where I'm sitting around here, listening to my book before bed, and I'm asleep.
Yeah, so, that or like where you have to rewind it like 5 times because you zone out. You're like, wait, I missed something. What happened?
Yes, exactly. Because it's so flat. It's like that professor who's just blah, 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 and you're like, okay, I am not listening to anything they said. And then all of a sudden you're like, what did I miss? I've missed over 5 minutes, some of the key points. Yeah. And that's the thing. If it's a climax, let me know it's a darn climax of the story or something exciting. So no, you should not be robo.
Yeah, don't phone it in. And I mean, act like you're reading a book that you actually care about and not like, I don't know, a chemistry textbook.
Yes. Or medical book.
Yes.
No. Give me some excitement. If you're sad, let me know you're sad. I need all that.
But
if I'm doing audio.
Yeah, but you know what kills me though? It's like, this is a professional business. Just like with movies and television, there are producers. Why doesn't someone say, stop what you're doing? This is not working out.
Cut.
Cut. Redo from the beginning.
Right. I don't get it. And I don't know if it was budget. I don't know. But yeah, there's some bad audio, and I think I know I've read a series before where, I think we even talked about that before, where the first narrator did not make it to the second or third narration, and you're like, oh, now I see why.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to have some passion for the story.
Yeah. A great example of that, like I was telling you, was the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. The first narrator, oh man, she was like the worst. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I can continue with this. And then someone told me, no, keep going, trust me. And I'm like, okay, I'll pick up the next one. And I did. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. Yes.
The angels started singing.
Yes, exactly. Like they changed the narrator and it was like a fresh new book. It was night and day. Yes. It was crazy. So and it's good.
Right. And like you said, that's a no sell, or, I'll buy or I won't buy. By the narrator. And that's what I find myself doing too, because I do a lot more audio now than ebook or print. I go find out who's narrating, and if I know that narrator is poor, I will not buy the book.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and that hurts you. I mean, you've got to do research as a publisher, as a audiobook studio. You need to know who's good, who's bad, who's getting the bad reviews, and don't let your authors pick those people. Don't even put them in the deck when you give them the audio to listen to for samples. Leave them out.
Right. Well, I Skyped with an author, and she didn't even know who her narrator was. So I don't know if her agent or her whoever just selected the narrator, because when we Skyped with her, we had people who read, and I said, I did the audio, and your narrator, he started off poorly and he got better. And I told her, she's like, oh, I didn't even know who he was. And I'm like, really? You didn't have a part in that? So, yeah.
That's abnormal.
Yeah, so maybe that's what's happening with some of these books that are bad. And then I listened to another one of her books, and she did switch it up for, it was a different book. But her narrator was better. So maybe she got more involved with it. But maybe that's what it is. And like I said, it might be budget, because she said she didn't make a lot of people think she makes a lot of money, and she doesn't on these books. So
well, I'm sorry, I feel like you need to spend the money. It's just like, I feel like just like cover art. Yes, you need good cover art. I don't care how good that book is. People shop with their eyes. They eat with their eyes. They shop with their eyes. Get good cover art. That will draw more attention. And listen to us. We are readers. We would not lie to you.
No, there's some books. Yeah, because when you even go to Barnes and Nobles, the way they set up the books, that's the first thing I see. And if it draws my attention, I'm going to go grab it and at least look at the back and take a chance.
Yes. So cover art draws attention. And with audiobooks, you want spend the money, because you open yourself up to a whole new audience with audiobooks that you might have not gotten with print sales. So you don't want a crappy audiobook narrator. And you don't want to just say, well, I'll just throw an audiobook on so I'll have it. You want someone good.
Yes. Right.
As much as you can afford. That's good.
Right. It's not somebody who's just going to read the book. Because I could just read the book. That's the thing with audio. I could just read the book if I want. But when I do audio, I want more than just somebody reading the book. I want somebody to bring that story to life for me. As I go along my day, I need some excitement. Yeah. And audiobook is, how reading is I joyfully read. So if I'm going to have audio, I need that same joy. Yes. I
love to feel like people, when they tell me when I start talking about a book, I feel like they get excitement. It radiates off me when I'm talking about something I really love. Right. And that is what I want to feel every time.
I'm doing an audiobook.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So or when you're recommending a book and somebody says, can you recommend a book? And there's some books I've recommended on print, and then like you said, you'll say, but you got to do this one on audio. I don't care, if you like The Year of Yes, buy it, but also buy it the audio, because I did audio, and after I did audio, I went and bought a print copy because there was some stuff I needed to highlight. Even though you can bookmark on audio, I needed that print book to highlight.
Right.
So, and that's the thing too with audio. If it's that good and you just want a copy, like you say, you open yourself up for a whole new audience. I've bought your audio and your print.
Right.
So,
and there are people that only listen to audiobooks, you know, people with disabilities or people who can't see or, you know, can't read. They will listen to an audiobook. So you will get a different audience and capture people you wouldn't have in a traditional way. So that's really important, you know.
I've worked in special ed for probably, I'm not in that field anymore, but before we didn't have audiobooks. And that has opened up for some students who can't really grasp or, you know, or the attention span to read a book. And to have an audiobook is just awesome for them. You know, so now they don't feel like they're left behind. Like you said, with disabilities, it's awesome.
Right, absolutely. Another thing that makes a bad audiobook, but it also does the opposite. It could be a good audiobook if it's used correctly, and that is music and sound effects. It's very important that it fit, like, you know how I gave the example of Lumine earlier? That was a perfect example of sound effects and things that work in a book. But sometimes it's like, what is that noise? It doesn't fit, or this music is too loud, or, you know, it needs to be done right. So it could make something go very, very wrong.
Yeah. And I did listen to a book like that before and was walking, and I had to go like, what was that sound? Because I thought like somebody was, I think it was like crunching leaves or crunching branches, and I had to turn around like, okay, what is that sound? And rewound, and it was the book, but it was odd. And maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I was just like, what the heck was that? Because I hadn't heard it. I hadn't heard sound throughout the book before. And then, it slowly started doing it more, and I realized it. And it was a creepy book. But yeah.
Ooh. What book was it? I'm curious.
Can't remember. I can't remember.
Oh, well, that is kind of a bad thing. Okay, well, that is bad when you're not expecting it, and there was no, you know, sound effects before, and now all of a sudden there is.
Yes, I can't remember. If I find it, I will let you know. But yeah, it was just like, and it worked out eventually, but it was it wasn't a good flow into the book.
Yeah. Well, you know, another way that it actually works good is this one example, Feed by M.T. Anderson. It worked pretty well in that book. I think I would have hated reading that book because it was about, you know, it's weird. It was all about the feed in people's head. So it's a futuristic book. It's a futuristic story where people walk around with a feed inside of their head. So, like, let's say they're looking at a TV show or they're looking at, I don't know, a book in the store. Then the feed would pick up that you're interested in, I don't know, J.R. Ward, and start talking about all these things related to J.R. Ward. Or you're in the mall and you look at Nikes, and suddenly the feed is telling you sales about the Nike shoes. And then, so, you know, throughout this audiobook, you're hearing commercials and text messages being read from the feed and all these different things. And it's a lot. It is. It's like almost overload with all the things, but I think it makes you understand what the intent of the book was versus reading it. So
because they're feeding you all this information, thus so that does sound like they did an excellent job with producing that book
I think I gave it a 3, but for me, if I had read it, it probably would have been a 1. I'm just saying. I think it would have been horrible to read, but the fact that I was listening to it really made me appreciate what the author was trying to do, even though you know what I'm saying? So
yes,
that's good. So what are some audiobooks that you thought were bad that you read and you thought, okay, this falls in that bad category that you would never recommend to anyone?
God Help the Child, Toni Morrison. I think her main character was Bride, which was a young 20-something-year-old woman, And Toni Morrison is 70 years old, and her voice is cracking.
Mm-hmm.
Love Toni Morrison. She's a great author, but she did not do this book any justice. It's one of those books where I just wanted to finish because we love Toni Morrison. This must be a great book.
Yeah.
But she didn't do a good job. She was flat the whole time, and there were male characters, female characters. No. I would not reckon it. I needed youthfulness for Bride, and Toni Morrison did not have any youthfulness in her. She had maturity. She did a great job for Bride's mom, but the other characters were all young characters, and she didn't do a good job. Another one is All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. The narrator was Rebecca Ross. She was flat the whole time. There was points where I fell asleep. Excuse me.
That's not good.
Listening to listening to 30-40% of the book. She didn't really pick up until like 78% of the book. And it was to the point where when I'm driving, I was hypnotized.
Oh, no.
Yes. And it was just like, come on. And there was never a point where I was excited or what was next. It was just like, la, 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 la. It was very poorly done. And that was one of the narrators where you would think the producer would say, cut, you need to pick it up. They need to know when the book is exciting. And I mean, there was a lot of drama in this book, but I felt none of that until 78% of the book. And I think I did that on Goodreads and said, it's finally getting to the good part. 78% of the book.
I hate that. That's too far. That's too far.
Yes. I was like, you drug me along all this way to this, but people gave it good reviews, but audio... No, I did not so like. And I Almost Forgot About You. I think we mentioned that before. Terry McMillan. She was gruff the whole time. And another one would be, I'm trying to think, Helen Oyama. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Helen Oyama. She did. I'm listening to Bird Snow. Gosh, what is the name of that? Bird Snow Boy or Boy. It's just bad. And it's a couple of different narrators, but it's just dragging. It's really dragging. So those would be some of the ones I would not recommend.
Okay. Well, I have two, I think, that come to me right now. And one is Light Between the Oceans by M.L. Stedman. It's narrated by Noah Taylor. Oh, God, that was bad. It was bad. I mean, this dude, Noah Taylor, I'm sorry, Noah, but your voice is just, I can't. He's supposed to have, I think, an Australian accent or something, and I didn't really hear much of an accent, and his voice was so low. I had to turn the volume way up, and I'm like, oh, and then his cadence, I think I might not have liked, and the story was already kind of dry. It wasn't really an action-packed story, and then his voice on top of it. I mean, I was forcing myself to finish that, and that was another one of the ones where I'm like, wait, I had to go back to the beginning of the chapter because I totally missed half of what he just said.
Right. Because you're like, something important just happened. I know it did.
Yeah, but what was it? Who was it? I don't even know. Let me just go back.
Right.
It was bad. Skip out on that one, guys. And then also, I would say Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. This is the second book in the Red Queen series. And, the first one, I thought it was okay. I was interested enough. I thought it was good enough that I would continue on, of course, and I was wrong. So, I mean, the narrator wasn't that bad, but I suspect that the story is kind of bad. And it's one of those where maybe things might pick up in the last 30%, but it's getting there. It's like, my goodness, is it worth it?
Right.
I actually put it on hold. I still have it. I'm going to try to finish it. I really try to finish everything I start, but it's definitely on the back burner.
Right.
I might get back to it in the next 6 months. I might not. I don't know. I just had to, no, can't do it.
I was looking through my Audible queue, and I'm like, gosh, I've had 3 books on there, and yeah. And it's like, when are you going to finish them? And it's like, eventually, every once in a while, I'll do a couple chapters here and there, and I'm like, oh God, but I paid for it. I got to listen to it.
Oh, I know. It's like, I feel like, I know Audible is really good about returns, but I try to do it, like, if I don't like it, I try to say something about it within the first 2 weeks. Like, look, I just got it. I just listened to it. It's bad. I don't want it. Or, the sound quality is bad or something. But when I've had it for 2 months, I'm like, oh, I'm stuck with it.
Gotta finish it. Yeah. And you know what? That's something I should think about doing. If it's that bad within the first couple, like you said, days, just give it up. But I'm so type A. I'm like, I'm going to finish it. If I start it, I'm going to finish it. But yeah, maybe I should just give it up and say, you guys can have this one back.
And you know what? In general, I do kind of feel pressure to finish it because I hate to have something unfinished. But on the flip side of that, I feel like life is too short to waste on bad books. Bad movies, bad TV, bad anything. So if I'm not enjoying it, I need to just make myself more comfortable with throwing in the towel.
Right. And Audible does, like, they have a great policy of returning. So I don't know, like you said, I don't even know why I'm wasting my time. Yeah. We'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's definitely a thing. Like, I even hate to even mark things DNF on Goodreads. Like, I have less than 5 books on there. I really mull over it before I decide not to read it. I really hem-haw around before I say, okay, officially DNF.
Right.
But it's got to be done sometimes.
Right, because you want to have some kind of hope that maybe, just maybe, because some books are like that. They start off slow and they get better, but you kind of tell when it's not going to happen.
Right. So, I don't know. Is there anything else we want to say on this audiobook topic? I really love audiobooks. I just keep talking about different audiobooks all day long.
Yeah. Only thing I would say is probably another thing I didn't like in one of my worst books, and it's still in my queue. Well, no, I just finished it. It was the James Baldwin, Just Above My Head. And it was it's an older book, it's James Baldwin. And I don't know if it was, like you said, a combination of a bad story and the narrator, but it was a lot of flashbacks.
Okay.
And I usually don't mind flashbacks.
Yeah.
But this flashback, I think you mentioned that with Feet, it felt like I was on a merry-go-round, and his pace was fast, and I felt like my head was spinning. I could not grasp the story at all. So, again, that's one of the things. If you're going to do a flashback, that's a talent. You got to do flashbacks correctly. And I started off with the print, and I had a hard time, and moved over to audio hoping that would help, and that didn't help. So, yeah, it's
just bad.
Yeah. Again, I should have gave it up, like you said. Just give it up, and that's probably going to be my goal now. I buy it, I don't like it. Within the first couple days, it's gone. But that's another issue. I'll buy them, and I let it sit in my queue and don't read it immediately.
I do that too. Like, I just bought 3 books by Danica Dark off a recommendation. They had a buy 2 get 1 free sale. So I just bought 3 books in a series by this chick. Never read a book by her. Never listened to an audiobook. And now it's been a week since I bought it. And it's just sitting there. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. See, so that should be our goals. Don't buy, if we do buy it, like, at least start reading it. If we don't like it, return it. Because it's like a wasted credit.
Yeah.
Then I'm mad.
I know. I mean, Audible's gotten so much money off me. It's crazy. Because I've also bought credits. Like, you know how they have the little sale, I guess, where you buy credits at a lesser rate, where it's like $11 a credit versus $15 or something.
Yes.
I'm telling you. I need stock in Audible. Well, I guess that would be Amazon.
Right. Because they got a lot of my money.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Have a lot of my money.
Yeah, it's a novelty that And it's funny, I used to always think, I will not pay for audiobooks. At first, I was hardcore about getting them from the library, but then sometimes the library would take too long to get the new releases, and they would have 100 people waiting for it.
For
And I'm
one
like,
book.
yes. And I'm like, I can't. And so then I caved. I did the 30-day trial, and then I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep it. So
Yep. I'm hooked.
yes.
I'm like, for $15 a month, it's worth it.
Yeah.
That you could do a lot worse with 50. I could spend that in a day for dinner. A day. So 15 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, another trick I learned though, if you have a Kindle, I've done this. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy the Kindle book with the Audible add-on than it is to spend the credit. So, for example, there was one book that was on sale for $1.99 on Kindle, and the audio narration was $1.99 add-on. So then you just buy the Kindle along the ebook along with the audiobook, and I'd rather spend $5 than use that one credit that cost me $15. So always look first to see if it's cheaper to buy them as a bundle than to use the credit.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And another thing with Audible, you can share a book. You can share one book for free. So I think you can only do it once you finish the book, and it'll say you can share with a friend and send it. So, you know, if I have a book in my library, I say, okay, I'm going to give this to Tamara. Yeah. You know, I could say, you know, this, right.
Yes.
So a highly recommended book.
Is this all books, or is it only certain publishers that are allowing it? Is it everything?
No. Right, because I know Amazon does that, where that you can only share, but I think it's any book that you buy, you can share one book. So I'm trying to look it up, but yeah, I think it's all books you can share. But I know, like on Amazon, when you buy it from your Kindle, there's only a few books that you can share with your friend. But so far, every book that I've read, it'll allow me to share it.
Yes, that's awesome. I love Audible. So, I hope they don't change that.
No, right? So go back in your queue and see like what books you finished, and I think you have to click on that, the 3 dots at the top. Right. I think it says before you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to make my little list up of the things I've read, and you can see if there's anything on there that you want to see, because it's after it's read, right? So I'd have to sort the things that I finished. Right.
Yeah, because Alicia from my book club, she gave a book to me, and that's how I got...
I hear your audiobook. What is it?
I'm sorry. That was the Walls Protocol. I was trying to do it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
that's
okay.
That's how she shared that book with me. And it was for free, because she's like, oh, you got to read this book. It's so great. And then she said, you know what? I'm going to share it. And they just send you an email, and it drops it into your queue. So.
Is it timed, or can that person keep it for like a couple weeks, or is it only for... Because I remember with Amazon Kindle, I think that person could only have it for like 14 days or something.
No, I've had this book for I don't know how long, because it's a medical kind of book. So no, it's mine, I believe.
Oh, wow. So it's like gifting a book, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Because she gave that to me back in May.
Okay.
And I still have it. So yeah, gifting a book.
Wow. Well, it's definitely worth it then.
Yes.
Because that's really like 2 for 1, really. That's very cool. Okay, yes. Yeah. Awesome. I'll be using that function.
Okay.
We've got to do this again, Classy, for sure.
Yeah, I would love to do another topic with you.
Yes.
Let's go there.
Yes, I wrapped someone else into my podcast grip.
Oh, hey, if we're talking books, I could go there. I could go there with you. So, and just trying to get people to love books. They don't understand there's so many ways to love, to get involved in a book. So,
yeah, not that many people, it's like almost audiobooks are almost this secret society almost, because I feel like some people try to make people feel bad for listening to audiobooks, like they're cheating or something. Yes. And I don't see that at all. No. I don't feel that way about it at all. So
no.
come out of the dark and into the light and talk to
Come
us
on
about
over.
audiobooks. Yes, come over to the the bad side, I guess.
Right, cross over.
Yes.
My girlfriend used to think that way too, but all of a sudden she's on the train and trying to read a book on the train with all those different noises. She realized it was becoming hard. So now she's doing Audible. And I was like, don't you love it? She's like, oh gosh, it's so great. Because you're in your own little world without, that sound of everybody else. So, she's completed 2-3 books 2 books in a week at least. So, and that's what my one girlfriend was saying. When I would do my progresses, how do you get to read that many books? I said, because I'm doing audio and I'm doing print.
Yep.
And that's my that's my passion, or my little guilty pleasure, reading.
Yeah, me too. And that is a quick way to double your intake. Like I read, I might read on my lunch hour, read before bed, but while I'm at my desk doing mundane tasks, I'm listening to audiobooks. While I'm driving home, I'm listening to audiobooks. While I'm shopping in the store, I'm listening to audiobooks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you have all that little empty space of time. You can get a book in. So,
this might be TMI for some people, but you go into the restroom, you bring your audiobook. I'm just saying.
Taking a nice bath. Yes, I
bring
have
your
done
audiobook.
That. My little spa day, I'm sitting in the tub and I'm listening to my book.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's like listening to music to me too, And I find myself, I don't even listen to the radio anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
I know.
I'm always slow on new songs because I don't listen to the radio.
No, I am too. I'm like, what is that? You don't listen to the. I'm saying, like, no, I'm usually listening to a book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and my husband even knows it. What are you listening to now? Or I'll find he'll ask something about the story, and he's in the other room, and I'm like, oh, you listening to my book, huh?
Well, hopefully he's not listening to anything too risque. I'm sure.
The walls. Right. I think you told me Fever series. I need to.
Turn the volume down. Put some headphones on.
It was the Walls Protocol. That was a medical book, and he was kind of listening. He's like, "So what was that?" And I was like, "Yeah." So you can. They do get drawn in, and like I told you, when my daughter was home for college, I was listening to Dark Matters. Mm-hmm. Saw that guy at BEA, picked up his book, and they gave us a audio, I think, with it, and I had turned it off when they came down because I was like, oh, maybe they don't want to listen to it, but she heard it, and she's like, don't turn that off, I want to hear what's happening next. So it does draw some people in. So
yes, fabulous. I say draw as many people as you can into the audiobook world. Yes.
And that's what I used to do with them as kids when we take drives. I'd get a nice kid book, and that was on CDs, and we listened to books. So find a book with the kids. So, and that's a good way too for families with kids to read them. Yeah,
that's a good idea. All right, so let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter if they want to reach out to you before we sign off here.
They can find me at Classy Green, CLASSY Green, on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. It's been fun.
Thank you. Always a good time talking about books.
All right. So thanks for listening to that today, guys. See you next week. But before you go, please hit that follow button on Spreaker, the only place where you can listen live, or subscribe and listen later on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and the Stitcher app. That's it for today. Thanks, and until next time, happy reading. Bye, guys.